Before I get to my topic, I just wanted to quickly comment on the fact that I've seen the story there about Marine Atlantic, that they were going to be, reducing the fuel surcharge on vehicles and containers and what have you,
yep.
Coming across, and I guess just the general traveling public, and that's obviously a good thing. I'm glad to see that. I mean, with the prices down, the fuel prices down, I think it's only right. But I would certainly hope that savings would also be passed along by the other retailers and so on, because I had a conversation actually with a gentleman called me the other day, and I've had this with a few people now, and it's interesting that when the gas prices were up, you had a lot of businesses justifying the need to put the prices of groceries up and other products, consumer goods up, and when the prices go down, you don't necessarily see that. So
no, there's a big lag.
Savings will be passed on.
They jump ahead. They raise it before the fuel or the cost has gone up for them, really, because they've already bought stuff in advance and paid for stuff in advance. But they jump it up, and then there's always a lag, and eventually it will come down because that's how competition works. But like Marine Atlantic, they've only come down 6% on the surcharge. How much has the cost of that fuel come down, I'd like to know?
Yeah, well, that will be very interesting to know, and you can understand, Pete, when it comes to all of these things, that it is a cost of running a business, and you have to be compensated for it. Nobody goes into any kind of an operation or business to take a loss, but that said, when the prices come down and you see significant savings, and I think that should also be passed on to the consumer, and if it's not passed on to the consumer, then what we're talking about then is gouging, and I don't think that's right either. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it only takes one to pass it along.
Get passed on.
If one passes along, eventually the others have to follow suit, or they start losing business. Yeah. Oh, by the way, before you go on with anything else, I want to know why you and Mount Pearl, and it's just starting, I think, tomorrow, the festival, the Winter Festival, Frosty Festival. How come you guys have this big, successful, hugely popular festival, and we in St. John's don't have one anymore? There used to be one, but not anymore.
Yeah, well, Pete, first of all, it's not starting tomorrow. Tomorrow is just the Frosty Festival News Conference, which will be announcing all the events that will be coming up.
I read that too quickly. Okay.
February.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes, when we talk about, the size of a community, and of course sometimes you hear people say, well, Mount Pearl can't grow, it's kind of stuck in terms of where it can grow and the number of people that we can have in the community. But one of the great things about Mount Pearl is that we have a population there that's able to sustain itself, but by the same token, we're also small enough and close-knit enough that you have that small community field. And I've said many a times that Mount Pearl is really the biggest outport in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I think because of our size, our geography, and so on, that we're not too large, and it brings us all together. Everybody knows everybody, like you'd have in rural Newfoundland and Labrador, and it enables us to do these types of things. And we have a great volunteer base. We always have, and of course that's what makes it come together as well.
So you still have a sense of community,
absolutely,
as opposed to like an urban sprawl.
Yeah, well, I think that once you get so large, it becomes more difficult to maintain that sort of major community,
Major cities across the country, though, do have winter carnivals and whatnot with all types of events, so I still don't get it. Maybe the fact that we do have lousy winters sometimes that are more slush than anything has something to do with it. But anyway, let's get on to your topic before we run out of time.
My topic, absolutely, Pete. So I wanted to, and I just sent you an email there just a few minutes ago of a news story, and this news story came out on the 22nd of December. Probably got lost because, of course, we're right into Christmas at that period of time. But the news story has to do with an issue which I've raised in the House of Assembly, and certainly my colleagues before me did, and that was the issue of payday loan legislation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Pete, Newfoundland and Labrador, to my knowledge, is the only province, or one of the only for sure, that doesn't have payday loan legislation. And, we had a gentleman who contacted our office, for example, a while back, who indicated that he had gone to a payday loan company. He had borrowed $600. At the end of the month, he had to pay back $900. So, you know, when you look at those types of situations, I think it's evident that Newfoundland and Labrador needs to follow suit with other provinces and put payday loan legislation in place. And when questioned in the House of Assembly, I've asked the Minister of Service Newfoundland and Labrador about this, raised this issue in the House of Assembly, calling on him to put payday loan legislation in place. And basically the Minister's response, which was also the response of the Minister before him, was that basically under the Criminal Code of Canada, Section 347 of the Criminal Code, it says that basically the highest amount of interest on an annual basis that can be charged is 60%, and anything beyond that is a criminal offense under the criminal code. But if you look at this story, again, that came out on the 22nd of December, in the story it actually talks about the fact that we had a lengthy investigation by the RCMP. It was a 3-year probe into the payday loan situation, and there were charges that were laid, and the courts or the prosecution decided that they weren't going to lay charges. So, you know, what's the point of saying that we have we're not going to put payday loan legislation in place like other provinces. We'll just simply follow the federal legislation, which is a criminal code. But then when it comes down to an exhaustive 3-year investigation, and you can imagine now the time and the money associated to doing that, and once it's all said and done, the Crown says, no, it's not worth prosecuting.
Well, beyond that, how can 60% be okay?
Well,
you know, really.
Well, I don't think it's okay.
No, I'm just saying that.
I guess under the criminal code, beyond that, I guess it's considered loan sharking or something. I suppose. I'm not I'm not up on the criminal code. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I'm assuming that once you get beyond a certain point, it would be considered the same as similar to, I suppose, loan sharking or something. But you know, the bottom line is that I agree with you. 60% in itself is a ridiculous number, but
not to enforce it, yeah.
But I mean, 600%. Which is what this gentleman experienced, is even worse. And so, you know, all this could be fixed if we follow the suit of other provinces and put payday loan legislation in place. And so I'm going to call upon the Minister of Service, Newfoundland and Labrador, once again, as I've done in the House of Assembly, to bring in some legislation when the House opens.
So is this Liberal policy now? Will we see this legislation for sure if the Liberals do form the next government?
I haven't seen the Red Book, but I can, I haven't actually seen that in the Red Book, Pete, so I'm not going to
suffice to say you'll be pushing for it, though.
Well, from my perspective, I'm calling on them to do it, and I will be and I would likewise want a Liberal government to do the same thing. All right.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. We got to go, but look forward to the next time.
Absolutely, Pete, because we're talking about here, you know, some people that we're talking about here quite often are the most vulnerable people, or in stressful situations. They have to go to these places to begin with, and it really is taking advantage of those people, and that's not what we want. We need to protect people.
That's the understatement of the year.
Absolutely.
It's only early yet. All right, thanks again.
Okay, Pete, have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.